I sure have. I've been working almost too much. It's hard to find that.
Neon leaks out of every cracked window on Lower Broadway, pooling like moonshine around your boots, and the jukebox is coughing up a dirge that sounds suspiciously like tomorrow's hangover. That's where our story begins, in a bar that never closes, haunted by legends who never could. If you've ever sworn you heard Hank Williams Sr. still harmonizing with the ice in your glass, you're not alone. The man who wrote Heartache into verse tried to drown the echo with bottle after bottle until at 29 his Cadillac went colder than the winter he was driving through, and country music learned what short stories really look like. Not far down the bar, the ghost of Keith Whitley lifts a glass that smells like goodbye. The rising star with the velvet drawl kept promising he'd quit tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. When they found him in his Nashville bedroom, his blood alcohol measured .47, a number that still makes paramedics curse. The autopsy read alcohol poisoning. The headlines translated it to another promise broken. And whispering between them like a jealous chorus is Tammy Wynette. She survived stage lights bright enough to fry moths, yet her backstage arguments with George Jones poured more whiskey than any bar register. Slip past the neon cactus at the door and you'll bump into Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter, the outlaw lovers who turned rebellion into a brand. Their romance was stitched together with guitar strings and ripped apart with corks. Waylon liked to joke he'd quit everything except breathing, but even he admitted the whiskey didn't laugh back. His best friend Johnny Cash understood. In the 60s, the man in black soaked his voice in booze and chased it with pills until he was wandering Tennessee caves convinced the echo might save him. Across a sticky table, Johnny Paycheck is explaining how he once shot a man over a misunderstood haircut. The judge didn't buy the story, but the audience sure did. His record sales spiked the week he went to prison. Paycheck shared a cell with David Allan Coe, who claims he learned songwriting from rattlesnakes, and that every venomous thing he drank just sharpened his pen. Close your eyes and you might hear Billy Joe Shaver sigh. He lost fingers in a sawmill and nearly lost the rest of himself in a bar fight that ended with a pistol, a courtroom, and a hit single. Out on the patio, Merle Haggard turns his collar to the wind. He used to hide flasks in the hollow cavity of his guitar. Now he hides regret behind borrowed sunglasses. Beside him, Chris Christopherson quotes philosophy over straight rye, reminding anyone within earshot that a poet's job is to taste the world and spit out the poison, as verse. Steve Earle nods. He chased his demons with coke, cannabis, and jailhouse coffee. But when the bars slammed shut, he finally heard the melody of survival. Townes Van Zandt just smiles, too busy negotiating with fate to bother sobering up. He always said the only thing better than quitting drinking was writing a song good enough to make quitting unnecessary. Lean into the stairwell and you'll hear Jerry Lee Lewis pounding a piano into submission. They say he drank champagne by the gallon to keep the devil cool in his gut, yet still could set ivory on fire with a single chord. Gary Stewart watches from the shadows. He could yodel heartbreak so pure it made neon flicker, but he rarely performed sober enough to remember the words. When his wife passed, the grief swallowed him whole, and he ended his own song 2 months later in a house too quiet for country music to echo. If you head outside, you'll find Hank Williams Jr. sitting on a tailgate, counting scars like rosary beads. After tumbling off an Idaho mountain, he rehabbed with a flask hidden under the hospital mattress and swears the doctors never noticed. He insists the fall taught him humility. Skeptics say it taught him to stash better whiskey. Charlie Rich wanders by with a lighter in hand, grinning about the night he torched John Denver's CMA envelope on live television. He claims he was just trying to warm the room, but everyone remembers the smell of singed carpet and a career sizzling on national TV. Inside the bathroom line, Dottie West is humming Country Sunshine while studying a reflection she barely recognizes. A decade of post-show nightcaps turned her skin fragile as old sheet music. She tells anyone listening that she drinks so the mirror won't argue back. Mel Tillis stutters a joke about how he could only talk smooth after 6 shots, then proves it by delivering a flawless punchline. Glenn Campbell waits behind them, guitar case in hand, confessing he once tried to play sober and forgot which song paid the rent. On the roof, illuminated by a Marlboro ember, Johnny Horton retells his final hours. He'd foreseen death in a honky-tonk mirror, drove off anyway, and met a drunken truck on a Louisiana bridge at dawn. Some swear Horton haunts every bar jukebox that refuses to quit, a restless spirit still waiting for the crowd to hush. Down the fire escape, Mickey Newberry strums a single chord that hangs in the humid night air, like sweat on vinyl, and reminds the moon that tragedy sells, but honesty echoes longer. These stories sound like tall tales whispered over too many rounds, but the hospital records are real, the obituaries unmistakable. Out of 30 names, 12 never made it past 60, 3 bowed out in motel rooms no bigger than a tour bus bunk, and nearly all left behind songs that sound suspiciously like confessions. If you sift through cracked 45s at any flea market, you'll see the pattern, a glass ring etched on every sleeve as if the records themselves paused for one last drink. Yet not every ending fades to black. Glenn Campbell fought his way to sobriety long enough to film a farewell tour that felt more like a public diary. His handshake wobbled, but his smile stayed true. Steve Earle turned courtroom sentencing into a songwriting workshop and now signs autographs under banners that read, "Recovery is possible." Johnny Cash's late career Hurt video proved you can peel back scars and still find a pulse. Even George Jones, years after that lawnmower stunt, sobered up enough to hit every note he used to miss. So why did so many of Nashville's brightest lights choose a bottle over a compass? Maybe because whiskey never booed, never asked for refunds, never cared if your new single tanked. Maybe because a bar stool listens better than a record executive. Or maybe because pain writes better lyrics than joy, and alcohol is pain's cheapest ink. The math is cruel. 3 chords, and the truth can cost more than any mansion in Brentwood. Publishers collect royalties, singers collect regrets. Tonight, as the bar lights dim and the bartender lines up one last round of stories, the air thickens with a bittersweet truth. Addiction may have owned chapters of these lives, but it didn't sign the final page. You can taste the warning in every lingering note, yet you can also hear a dare, a challenge to trade the next drink for a deeper breath and maybe even a verse of your own. If their downfalls captivate you, let their comebacks haunt you harder. A fresh-faced songwriter listens, eyes wide as bar tabs, realizing education sometimes comes with second-hand bar-room smoke. Across from him, Shel Silverstein is hunched over a cocktail napkin, carving cartoons with the corner of a half-broken pencil. Every squiggled line grows darker as the whiskey level in his glass grows lighter. He grins like a coyote when someone asks if children's authors should be drinking at 3 a.m. "The Giving Tree never asked for permission to bleed," he replies, then signs his name backward, just to prove rules are optional after midnight. 2 stools over, Roger Miller balances a lime on the rim of his beer and bets the table he can rhyme mesquite with defeat before it falls. He wins easily by inventing a word halfway through the chorus and selling it as a lost B-side. The bar tips their hats because nonsense sounds wiser when your tongue is pickled. Mickey Gilley bursts through the side door, clutching a battered mechanical bull remote he swears still controls destiny. It's crusted with nightclub glitter from the Urban Cowboy set. But he claims the gadget works on memories too. Crank the dial and the past bucks harder until it throws you somewhere useful, or at least somewhere different. When the batteries die, he shrugs, orders Boilermakers for the room, and recounts the night he swapped piano lessons for a fistfight and ended up with a dented key that sings a half-step flat in every love song he's played since. Nearby, Freddie Fender croons, "Before the next teardrop falls," so softly it feels like a private voicemail from 1974. Each syllable carries the smoke of border town cantinas and the hush of parole offices after last call. He lifts his glass but doesn't sip, just watches condensation crawl down the side like time on a windshield. "I've already had enough," he whispers, meaning both the liquor and the years it swallowed. He salutes the ceiling anyway because tradition matters even when you're trying to outrun it, and the room answers by raising glasses heavy with sympathy and half-remembered harmony. Outside, a siren wails soft, like steel guitar in reverse tonight. A gust whistles through the warped doorway and suddenly the air tastes like river fog and backstage sweat. In walks 6'6" Sleepy LaBeef, less man than tall tale, a rockabilly baritone who once sang Jesus songs to truckers at 3 a.m. until fatigue blurred the lines between revival and relapse. He props an elbow on the bar, orders black coffee with a bourbon float, then mutters that the night is young even if his knees are 68. 2 stools away, Gary Allen pretends not to listen, but grief keeps time like a drum machine. He never joined the outlaw class of 70s icons. He was born too late. Yet tragedy shoved him into the same abyss. When his partner took the last train out of daylight, Allen numbed the static with bottle shots and stage lights, insisting the crowd needed the same medicine he did. 5 blurred years later, he poured every unfinished goodbye into smoke rings in the dark and crawled back toward daylight, proving some bridges can be rebuilt with chords alone. The bartender taps the brass rail to settle the noise, cracks raw eggs into a metal shaker, hangover medicine for whoever still thinks tomorrow is optional, and up steps Shelby Lynn, mascara smudged into war paint. She slides a demo across the counter like contraband. "Liquor steals my rhymes," she jokes, voice shredded velvet. Beside her stands Allison Moorer, younger, sharper, carrying a look that says, "Family isn't always rescue, but it's never surrender." They harmonize a chorus under their breath, 2 razor-clean notes slicing through the haze, and for once the jukebox stays respectfully silent. Toward the back, Chris Christopherson rises, sways not from whiskey but from memory, and tells the room how he once landed a National Guard helicopter on Johnny Cash's front lawn just to hand over a cassette. The stunt sounds mythic now, but Chris shrugs. Risk looks noble in hindsight. At the time, it's just terror. He toasts with ginger ale, proof that rebellion and restraint can share one glass. A hush falls as the ancient jukebox clunks, dropping Gary Stewart's drinkin' thing into the groove. The first chord floats like a confession, and even the ghosts pause to breathe in time. When the song fades, John Prine ambles in, post-surgery rasp wrapped in Kentucky wit. He plants an unopened beer on the bar but never drinks it, preferring to trade mailbox song ideas and the doctor who called his lung a stubborn briquette. Prine laughs first, beating everyone to the punchline, then slides the beer to a stranger who looks like he needs it more. The gesture ripples outward, tentative smiles surfacing like minnows after rain. Outside, patrol lights skate along the Cumberland and the bouncer props the door to let Dawn sniff around the edges. Someone mutters that Sunrise is just another encore nobody rehearsed. Yet inside, time loops like a pedal track, rewinding, overdubbing, refusing to quit. For a breath, the walls feel weightless, a plywood cathedral held together by chorus and confession. And if you listen past the clink of glass, you'll hear the softest promise this city can make. The night may end, but the song, if you let it, will keep singing long after the cash registers are silent. It drifts through studio walls, rides elevator shafts, hides in glove compartments, waiting for any traveler willing to trade silence for company. Maybe that traveler is you tomorrow, flicking on the radio during a stretch of lonely highway. Maybe it's the kid in the back seat learning Heartbreak in 4/4 time. Either way, the melody owes its pulse to every reckless toast poured on this floor. Remember that debt whenever the chorus comes back around and pay it forward. And because Nashville never met a ghost, it couldn't double book. Townes Van Zandt materializes beside the neon sign, humming a lullaby for lost souls. He once said there are only 2 kinds of men, the ones who play guitar and the ones who wish they could. Tonight he's neither, just a silhouette made of cigarette smoke and second chances. The night drifts toward dawn. Bartenders count tips that smell like bar rack bourbon. Amplifiers hum with residual hope. Outside, the Cumberland River rolls on, carrying whispers of set lists never played. The city skyline blushes pink like a fresh scar, and every legend, living, lost, or somewhere in between, feels stitched into that horizon. So if you find yourself shuffling past the last call bell in Music City, remember this. Every puddle of spilled whiskey on these streets once mirrored a star too bright to handle its own reflection. The songs they left behind are rescue flares shot across decades, lighting a path for anyone stumbling through the same darkness. Press play on their records and you'll hear more than pedal steel and confession. You'll hear a survival manual disguised as melody. The next time someone tells you country music is simple, slide them this story across the table. Let them taste the complexity aged in charred oak, the verses distilled from broken vows and empty bottles. Let them know that behind every 3-minute radio hit is a lifetime of 2 a.m. bargains whispered into bar mirrors that refuse to keep secrets. If they still don't believe you, drag them to this bar. Yes, the one just past the Ryman, where the neon never sleeps, and listen together for the faint clink of ghosts still tipping the bartender. Because somewhere in that sound, Hank Sr. is still searching for a cure he can rhyme. George Jones is still mowing down demons 1 yard at a time, and Keith Whitley is still teaching silence how to sing. Their stories warn us, break us, heal us, and above all remind us that a broken bottle can reflect light as fiercely as an unbroken one. The choice of whether to bleed or shine, though, is always ours. Before you leave, the bartender slides a blank coaster across the wood and hands you a pen that smells like stale rye. "Everybody in here wrote on one," he says. "What's your line?" You hesitate, then scribble something shaky but true. Maybe a promise, maybe a confession, maybe just your name. You set it beside the Ghosts coasters, and for a breathless moment it feels like you belong on the playlist too. Step outside. The sun is rising, the city humming awake, and the neon finally blinks off. You can still taste the stories on the air. Sweet, bitter, unforgettable. The street sweeper brushes past, collecting cigarette ends and discarded dreams. Somewhere a radio snaps on, spinning a track by a singer who drank himself into folklore. And as that first chord hits, you realize you're humming along, sober enough to remember the tune, wise enough to know how much it cost, and curious enough to wonder what melody might save you next. Stay tuned, the next legend might already be writing their confession tonight. So hit the comments and tell me whose verse stuck to your ribs, whose warning you'll pocket for the road. Smash the like button if you felt the sting, subscribe if you crave the cure, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next confessional. Because the jukebox is loaded, the ghosts are restless, and trust me, the darkest tales are still on standby, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to press play.